Hello and welcome to my series Fleece to Sweater, which I may rename Fleece to Cardigan at some point. But for people who are also on my other social media, this is the cardigan episode. This is the one where we're going to talk about the cardigan that I've chosen to make with the hand spun that I'm ready to spin now because I've done all my sampling. So go back in this series if you want to watch sort of the sampling portions of it, but just to sort of step through what we've done real quick before we get going into what's going to be math. This is a whiteboard. So we started by trying out a blend of fibers and then spinning that up and swatching it. And this was the swatch for the 2-ply of that blend. And then this was the swatch for the 3-ply of the same blend, which we liked. We liked the drape of this one. Color-wise, I did want to tweak one thing, which was try to make it lean a little bit more sort of taupey sandy color. So I changed the blend slightly. And this is the unveiling of what's going to be my final swatch. So this is a 2-ply. Oh, I have it upside down. Did I? I don't know. Does it matter? No. So this is 2-ply. And what I did was I did this on slightly bigger needles for the swatch than I did this 2-ply. And I do really like this fabric. I like that it's kind of a little bit see-through. The look I'm going for in the overall vision that I have, which I talk about at length, maybe even ad nauseum in my previous videos. So the last thing that I need to do before I start actually blending up this fiber, spinning it into yarn, into singles, plying it up into yarn, finishing that yarn, and then actually making my cardigan was to land on a pattern. And if you go back to the last one, you can see the patterns I was choosing between. I narrowed it down to 3 patterns, 2 of which were actual patterns that exist in the world today. And one of them was me creating a custom pattern. And what I loved about that option was, first of all, if I use the other 2 patterns, I would have to modify it for the look I was looking for anyways. But what I love most about the custom pattern is I can talk through the entire thing without having to sort of shield or hide piece of the pattern, because it's not fair to the designers if I'm showing the entire pattern and talking about mods in a way that's going to give away their pattern for free, because they work very hard on making their patterns. So I decided that I was going to give custom a try. And the nice thing about creating my own custom sweater and look is that it really is low stakes, because at the end of all of this, I can just go back and knit up one of the patterns. So that's the beauty of knitting, especially when I'm not doing anything that's color work or anything where I'm cutting much yarn. This is just going to be like a continuous stockinette cardigan, basically, with a certain look. So I said to myself, I'm going to go for it. So here's my swatch. I measured the gauge on this. After blocking, I've got 22 stitches across and 20 rows down in a 4x4 area. Now this is not 4x4. Some people get confused with swatching, and this is actually a pretty small swatch. I should have made it bigger, but I was just really looking at the color difference between that and this, which may not look like anything as I'm looking at it through the video, but in person it is a little more sort of sandy, earthy, and this one is just a tiny bit darker. A shade darker, or is it a tint? Which one is when you go darker? I don't remember. I think it's a shade darker. And I love it. So when you do a swatch, you're not trying to do 4 inches by 4 inches. This is a little bit bigger than that. You're trying to do bigger so that you can measure a 4x4 area inside of it. So I've got my gauge. I've got my image in my head, which we've probably all seen this now. I also have a highlight on my Instagram. If you go there, you'll be able to see, first of all, a highlight that has all the cardigan suggestions, the beautiful patterns that got suggested, both knit and crochet, that might be suitable for me to try to incorporate into this vision I have. And if you're wondering what this is either like a sweater pin or buttons. I drew a pin and a button just to make sure that this is extra confusing. But this was a sketch I did over in, I want to say part 1 or 2, probably part 2, of what I'm envisioning, which is something with a really deep V that hangs off the edge of the shoulders, like so, a really wide neck here, a really deep V, and I really don't want it to be like, I don't want it to hang straight down the whole way or anything like that. I want it to kind of be a little bit loose and baggy and droopy without actually falling off my shoulder. And I want it to be a raglan sleeve or a set-in sleeve because I don't want it to be a drop shoulder. That's what this, do not do a drop shoulder because it doesn't look, I'm not happy with the way that a drop shoulder looks on my frame. So all this to say, I want it to cover up apron belly area. Now I feel like I'm really repetitive already. We're 5 minutes in and I haven't even started talking about what I did this morning. So this morning, first of all, I set up my control card. And yes, I used painter's tape because that's what I had near me when I was doing this. Doesn't matter. But this is an example of the fiber here. So this is the raw fiber. This is my single. So this will be used as my control. So I'll keep this card with me while I'm spinning and make sure my singles are staying pretty close to this single. And then this is the 2-ply. I have 2 sections of 2-ply here. One is a thinner section from my latest sample and one is a thicker. I would like this to be sort of the thinnest it goes and this to be like the thickest it goes. And then I also put the 3-ply just for reference here. I do have some details about the blend on the back, but this is my control card that I'm going to kind of hang around and make sure as I'm drum carding it up. And then as I'm spinning the singles and plying, this is what I want it to aim for. So I have that. I also have all my specs from my swatches, which we've already seen. This last swatch, these are the specs. If you want to see it, it just had an increase in the sort of sandy color and decrease some of the white a little bit. But yeah, I got 30 yards, 10 grams, 3 yards per gram, WPI of 18. I used 4.0 millimeter or US 6 needles, and in stockinette blocked, I got 22 stitches and 29 rows as my gauge. So here, this is my working sheet. So like, pause to read, but like, don't worry about actually pausing to read. This was me doing a whole bunch of math, and I'm going to highlight some of the math that I started with because I don't really know how to design stuff. I think it's really important that I throw this out there. I am not a pattern designer, but I am a mathematical thinker and problem solver, and I'm willing to try things. So here is the finished pattern I ended up with, which is going to get us all the way, believe it or not, this little thing that I wrote down is going to get me all the way to a finished body, and then I just have to figure out sleeves. If it goes well, will it go well? I have no idea, but I am willing to try. So for the rest of the video, and remember, I don't know if this is going to work. I may change this entirely. I might scrap the whole idea of making my own custom design, but I feel like it's really fun and interesting, at least to me, and it may not be interesting to everyone. And if you turn off this video, I get it. But I think it's really interesting to figure out how people work through problems or like attempt to solve things or attempt to do things. And I think there's just as many learnings in failing as there are in succeeding. So I guess I'm a little bit of a scientist in that way, but in no other way am I a scientist. But I do actually really love math. So much so I studied it, post-secondary. I studied at university. I don't use it in my day-to-day very much, but I do enjoy it. So if this is hard to keep up with also, I apologize. And just know that I have the type of brain that likes to do this stuff. So if you can't figure it out and you can't keep up, don't feel bad about yourself. It's no reflection on you. And there are some things that just take me an awful lot of staring at. So I spent probably 3 hours this morning doing this. And this actually looks pretty neat. And I did it in pencil so I could erase things. But there's a couple really sort of important things when I was thinking through that I found challenging. I'm going to like draw on this whiteboard as if I'm some sort of teacher, which I also am not. But the first thing I wanted to figure out, well, actually the first thing I decided was, so I'm just going to like do my drawing of a person, a female body, because this is being made for me. This is not to scale, obviously. This is a very harsh generalization of a person. Okay. Yeah, it's not actually that bad, but it's just awkward. Okay. Some people do this all the time, I'm sure. To me, it's important that I have this here. And I'm going to put a shirt on myself because let's be real. And pants. Call them shorts even. There, that feels better. Okay. This is me drawing a body live. I do have my pause button ready to go if I need it, in case something goes awry, but I plan to not need it. Okay, so the first thing that I tackled was I understand some basic ratios for like a regular raglan. And for people who don't know what a raglan would be, if it was like a normal sweater, a raglan would basically have lines like here and here and the same on the back, going from the back of the neck to the armpit. And you're increasing here and only here at these sort of 4 points. And that creates this yoke that makes part of your sleeve and the front and back. And then you would separate out those sleeves and then you knit this way. Because I am doing top down. I do want to do top down in case I run out. I don't want to worry about running out of yarn because I made it too long to begin with. Oh, you can't see the little legs. Oh, that's okay. Well, you can see most of the legs. I put a line here to be like pants or shorts. So I want the raglan, but the first problem I had, oh, let me finish saying this. When you have a raglan, usually you have like, out of all the stitches that would go around your neck, you would do a third of them here. No. Yeah, a third of them there, a third in the back, and then you do a sixth over here and a sixth over here. And that becomes your 4 sections. So basically your body area is twice the size of your front and back area, or your sleeve areas, sorry. But because I want to start over here, because remember I want like a really wide neck, I want to start over here. Then the raglan's not doing this to my armpit. Instead, the raglan is like starting here and still kind of going out, but not very much. Do you know what I mean? So I've figured out, and again, these are all guesses. I decided that I'm going to make this opening that goes kind of across my neck. Like how wide will it be kind of along the back here? I decided, and this was kind of random. I had a measuring tape and my body. I said I'm going to make this 12 inches. Okay, which was great. And then I had no idea how wide to make like my sleeves here or anything like that. But I also decided that in the front, where I start here, I was going to make this like just 2 stitches. Because I want it to stay really wide coming down and then like kind of narrow in this way. So I ended up doing math to figure out then a whole bunch of things. I knew I wanted to start this at 12 inches, and this is probably not an accurate representation of where 12 inches lands on me. So that's unfortunate in general. I'll do it a little bit in like this. 12 inches. I also know that the width I want on all the way around, my general bust is 42 inches all the way around. I want to have like 10 inches or so of positive ease, which means I want the body around here all the way around to be 52 inches, which means I want it to be 26 under sort of on one side of it, which is half of that. So I know this, I want to be 26 inches eventually for how the body actually goes down here. And the 10 inches of positive ease just makes it not tight to my body. Because I want this to be loose and wear something sort of tight underneath. And it helps me sort of hide insecurities, but also not just be wearing a frumpy, oversized pillowcase or sheet on my body. So I knew where I wanted to get to, which was 26 inches. You got to leave some for the sides here. So I quickly decided that I was going to do an extra inch on the side under the arm later, which don't worry about that necessarily so much right now. So if there's an inch on each side here, then I actually want to grow this section to 24 inches before I separate for sleeves. So then I end up with this triangle that is not in scale at all. But picture this on the back of my garment. I'm going from 12 inches to 24 inches, which is cool. Okay. And then we say, okay, I've got 12 inches to 24 inches. And stay with me here because this is going to get crazy. Or it's going to make perfect sense. Okay, so we've got 12 inches in the middle in this part. We know this whole line's 24 inches and it's even on each side. So 24, take away the 12 in the middle. I've got 12 left to spread on each side. That means I've got, maybe I'll do this in a different color. I've got 6 inches here, 6 inches here, and 12 in the middle. So this 24 is like these 12 just keep going straight down. And I increase out 6 inches on each side. And this is forming, whoa, I just made everyone motion sick. Sorry about that. I got excited with my pointing devices. Okay, so this means that on the back, I'm going 6 inches out as an increase. And then this is where things start to get nerdy because I started to do other math around the sleeves in a very similar way. I don't even know how to draw this, but I know for the sleeves portion, which is going to end up, maybe I'll just draw what the sleeve's going to end up looking like. The sleeve is going to end up looking like this. And then it's going to come down and have a cuff of some sort, right? Let's call it like that. That'll be a sleeve. And I know, just based on my own measurements and whatnot, and I need to remember, I decided I want this to be 16 inches at its widest part, which is going to be right before when we separate the sleeve here at my armpit. So when this is 24 inches, I want this to be 16 inches. Okay. And I know this is where things get crazy. I know because if I'm increasing 6 inches out here, and if I do the increase the same on this side of the back and this side here, which is the sleeve, then I'm going to be increasing. Basically that 16 is going to turn into 6 inches here and 6 inches here. So 6 and 6 is 12. That leaves 4 inches left to make 16 inches total, which means this is 4 inches. Oh my gosh, this may not make any sense. It's already quite long. But all I'm doing is telling you the math on how I figured out what to cast on. Because once I start spinning this, I'm going to want to make some yarn and cast on and start fiddling around to see if this pattern idea even has a prayer of working. So what I ended up with is then I know I want to do, if you'll remember, I'm going to maybe take this away. I'm going to take all this bottom stuff away. I'm going to draw this separately for you. So I'm going to draw. I should have thought this through. I didn't really think this through. I'm going to draw this little trapezoid here, which is then going to come out by like an inch under the armpit on each side. And this is just what the back will look like. This is not what the front will look like. Okay. So if this is 12 and I want this piece here to be 24, then that means, remember, this is going to be 6, this is going to be 12, and this is going to be 6. And these are all inches. Inches. I'll show you how I convert those to stitches. But basically, I now know that when I make my cardigan, and then you gotta kind of picture it draping across here. What color should I use for this? I'm gonna use this hot pink. So when I make my cardigan, at the start, remember I'm gonna have it start like here. I'm gonna basically have a raglan sleeve. So we're gonna go right to the armpit. And it's gonna come out like this. And it's gonna repeat around the back side. It's gonna come around the back like this to the same spot here. It's going to have the raglan sleeve to the armpit. This part's going to come around, and once you separate for sleeves, we will have cast on some extra stitches underneath here, and then it's going to come across. Oh, it's not going to come across because this is the front. Cheapers. Okay. So we know our cardigan, when it hits that point, I've decided this is going to come kind of straight down, and then what's going to happen is once we hit the sleeve split, it's going to come in like this. So this is going to kind of come straight down. And this was a design choice that I made. I could have it come down at an even, but I kind of feel like I want to do that. Then I want it to come down like this. And this will be the cardigan coming down to however long I want it. There'll be a ribbing of some sort. It's not a garter on my legs. Oh, you can't even see it. Up we go. And then the sleeves will continue on, right? From the split. But at the point of the split, so basically then, here we go with my cardigan. I'm going to take out my body underneath, and we'll have my sweater there. This is maybe why I wasn't a teacher. Or definitely not trained to be a teacher. Okay, so there's my cardigan. Maybe I'll do some pockets here. Who knows? We'll see. I will have a button band of some sort. I will have some sort of way to connect it. But generally, that's the cardigan's look as I've designed it today. So at the top, if we start, like, let's just start on this side, for example. I'm going to have 2 stitches at the start. And I just decided I'm going to start it as small as I can. 2 stitches, so I have 1 stitch to pick up the button band with when I add the button band. And then the second stitch is just the only stitch there. Then I'm going to have my raglan, which is going to be 2 stitches. And that's this line here. It's just 2 stitches thick. Then I'm going to have this sleeve, which we decided is 4 inches. Then I'm going to have a raglan on the back shoulder behind this shoulder, which is 2 stitches. Then I'm going to have my back, which we know is the top of the back is 12 inches. Then I'm going to have my raglan that's behind here on my back of my shoulder. So I got my 2 stitches for that raglan. Then I have my sleeve again for this sleeve, which is 4 inches. Then I'm going to have my raglan, which is this one right here. And then I'm going to have my starting 2 stitches for right here. And that, my friends, is an extremely long way of saying this is how I figured out what I'm going to cast on. So now the last step is I am converting inches to stitches. And I'm going to do that with my gauge. So you remember on my gauge swatch, I had measured out 22 stitches blocked in 4 inches. So blocked means what it's going to be when it's finished. So I don't care what it is before that, but when it's finished, it should be 4 inches is 22 stitches. So we're doing a really simple substitution here where I take out the 4 inches and I turn that into 22 stitches, right? I take out this 4 inches here and I make it 22 stitches. Now this is 12 inches. This is where a calculator is your best friend. So 12 inches divided by 4 is 3. Now I'll tell you, I'll do this a different way too, but so we've got 3 times, we got the gauge swatch, the 4 inches going 3 times in a row. And my gauge in 4 inches is 22 stitches. So this 12 becomes a 66 stitches. Another way to think about it is if you do 22 stitches over 4 inches, divide that by 4, you'll get 5.5 stitches per inch. So if you get 5.5 stitches per inch, multiply that by the 12 inches that I want to go here, and that becomes 66 stitches. So, I'm going to need my calculator again. I don't know why I put it down. I hope it matches up with what I wrote down in my pattern, because this is exactly what I've decided. So I have 2 plus 2 plus 22 plus 2 plus 66 plus 2 plus 22 plus 2 plus 2 equals 122. And so I'm going to cast on 122. And that is how I decided what to cast on. Now, my general thought process is, I've already done all the calculations for how I'm going to increase and everything, but I'll talk about that in one of the future videos, because I don't want each video to, I don't want this video to be insanely long. But I wanted to let you know how I figured out the starting point, and then I'll place stitch markers in between, basically where all these pluses are. Those will be stitch markers, and then I'll do the increases that I calculate, which I'll talk about in the next, I don't know if it'll be the next video, because I'll probably do some carding and I've got some spinning to do, of course, beforehand. But what it means is we are going to get to the point where we have a bunch of stitch markers and we start increasing at a rate of which I have determined, but I'll share in the next one. And we're going to use that to get all the way to the point where we separate the sleeves, which again is going to be in the armpit here, across that, across the sleeve on the other side, and then across the back all the way. So I'll just do like a dotted one across the back, and that will take us there. And then we can do sort of a fit check at that point to see, especially was my assumption around 16 inches for my circumference, plus there's going to be 2 inches I'm casting on along the sides when I split the sleeves. Is that going to be enough? And if not, then I'm going to have to rip the whole thing out, because this number is going to change, which means this number is going to change, because that was based on the 4 inches, right? This was a 4 inches. This was a 12 inches. This was a 4 inches. So was my sleeve guess number right? Was my 12 inches that I started with at the back of the back? Maybe I'll write back here so that later, if we look at this again, and this was sleeved. Wow, that was not nice writing. Was this number right? Was this number right that we're getting up to? So the way I built it, the steps make sense mathematically, but I made a lot of sort of guesses on how to start. And you may know how to start. And if you do, toss it in the comments. I'll take that information into account. But a lot of this is probably going to be trial and error. And yeah, it does mean I may knit this entire section up top, try it on, decide I'm way off, and start again. But the thing that is giving me a little bit of confidence, shall we say, is that I still have to... What color should I use for this? I'll use... No, red's too close to it. Yeah, okay, I'll use green. Is after all this is done, before I finish the sweater or anything, I'm going to be adding a button band that's going to go all the way up. It's going to come over and up here and around here and down here, right? And then back down here. So when I'm adding that button band, I feel like I can make that button band thick if I want to, if I feel like it's not quite wide enough, but generally the shape is okay. Or I feel like I can make it really thin if I need to. Or I could choose to not have it at all. So I do feel like there are some ways that I'll be able to play with how it looks here afterwards. But the really important thing is going to be, how's it feeling on my arms? And unfortunately, you don't really get to know that until you split where this blue line is, you split the sleeves, and then you really have to knit some more to sort of see how it's going to sit there. So realistically, I may have to go all the way to here, knitting wise, and maybe even put the sleeves out a little bit. before I'm going to even know if this is going to work and if I need to make adjustments. So yeah, that's the starting math. I don't think, I'm just trying to clean it up a little bit while I talk. I don't think in my head, realistically, that's stupid. I'm just going to take my chest out. Wouldn't that be fun? If I could do that when I'm doing exercise and stuff. Anyways, I really don't think that... Oh, I lost my train of thought. I don't remember. Oh, I don't think that I want to get into the math around how I decided my increases that will happen along the 4 raglan points. I've done that math. I don't think I want to get into it in this video because we're already at half an hour. What I'm going to spend my time on now instead is I'm going to end the video here. I'm still happy to show my scratch sheet here. And I'm happy to show that this is the pattern I plan to go with. But again, will it work? Will it fit? It's very custom to my body because again, how I came up with this 24 inch and this 16 inch was based on my body. And not based on any sort of like standards and stuff like that. It literally tape measure on my body. And then that turned into figuring this out and figuring this 6 out and all this stuff. So you can try to make this if you want to. You can let me know. You can tell me if I'm on the complete wrong track in the comments. This is where my mind has gone to so far. And this excitement of having this part figured out and wanting to get to try it is going to help me stay focused on the spin. Because I've been really loving spinning these samples and swatching them up. And I've got really good momentum. But now what we're talking about, I have 3 bags this size of bundles of fiber to card up and then to spin. So I need something to keep my excitement and momentum going. So my plan so far for what's happening next, which will probably be the next video, I'll do some carding on the next video. I'm going to card up, this is just one bundle without the alpaca. Here it is with the alpaca. So this is 1/3 of 100 gram skein. So this is like a 33 gram skein, or just over an ounce and a bit, an ounce and a third, I guess. I don't know, an ounce and a quarter. And I've got 21 of these bundles, so I can make 700 grams, which should, by my math, remember, where's my swatchy thing? I get 3 yards per gram, roughly. I think I'll get probably more than that, but this should be at least 2,100 yards once I card all of it up and spin it all up, which should be enough for anything, especially because I'm having like a big chunk of this sweater is not even a sweater, it's just open to me. And I have no idea what the length will be and whether or not I have enough for pockets. We'll figure that out later. That's a later me problem. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to card up at least 200 grams worth so I can kind of like have those all sort of go together, and then I'm going to do a final pass splitting them up. Someone put that wonderful comment in, I think it was in my last video or the one before, where I'm going to do a bunch of these bundles. So I'll do like 6 of the bundles, and then I'll split each of them into 6, and then I'll grab 1 from each, and that way I'll be able to ensure that I'm getting a really uniform distribution. I mean, I don't mind it if I have little variations like this, but what you don't want is have like one skein a completely different color than the other skeins, because that becomes really noticeable in a pattern like this where you're just kind of working flat. There's nowhere to hide. It's going to show up if we've got this one and then the next one's a completely different color in the next section. So this is a very long, rambly video. Do you enjoy the math? Do you like hearing this process? I would love to hear from you. Your thoughts on it, positive or negative. Don't really care. I'm open to all feedback because, again, I'm not a designer. I am not a teacher. I am someone who loves the process. And I know that there's got to be people out there like me who want to get invested in something, want to see how it works, want to see what didn't work and why it didn't work, and is happy to go on that ride with me. So that's what this whole series is going to be. We'll do some carding, we'll do some spinning, we'll do all sorts of stuff, we'll do some knitting, we'll talk about things. And it'll all get tucked into a playlist. But thank you if you're still here. This one's a long one, but this is like super exciting for me. And I'm basically that emoji with Julia Roberts and the math just swirling around. That's how I felt all day, but it feels really good where I've gotten to, which again, this is part of. And I can't wait to share it with you, and we'll see how it goes. Suggestions welcome, comments welcome. Hope you have a great day, and I hope to see you back for the next one.